Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for being here. And secondly, I'd like to kick this off with a story that my friend told me. So he said, there's this couple who had identical twins, both girls. So when it's an identical twin, you know that they look alike, they share the same family, the same house, similar privileges, and the same upbringing. So the only difference between these two kids were how they viewed life. Because one kid was an extreme optimist, whereas the other, an extreme pessimist. So their birthdays were approaching, right? So their parents, they wanted to play a small trick on them. So what they did was, in the room of the pessimist kid, they placed this huge box that's filled with goodies and toys, everything nice and expensive. Whereas, in the room of the optimist kid, all that they placed was this little horse poop on the floor. Yes, a little horse poop. So they really wanted to see how their kids would respond to it. So it's the next morning. It's their birthday. The pessimist kid, she wakes up to this box. She's really excited in the beginning, and she goes through these stuffs, and it takes her less than 10 seconds to come up with thoughts like, oh my God, look at that. These are so pretty. If I play them with my friends, there's chances that they can get jealous, and what if they steal it? Or look at that. That looks really expensive. What if I break them? Mom and Dad are going to scold me. What do I do? Well, that was her reaction. Whereas in the other room, the optimist kid, she wakes up to this little horse poop. She looks at it. She's really excited, goes down, meets her parents, and she's telling them, so I found this little horse poop up in my room. That means there's a pony nearby. So that's the pony, by the way. So the moral of the story is, it really does not matter what you get in life. What matters is how you see the things you have. So of course, there's a reason why my friend told this story to me, because I'm the pessimist kid, always complaining. Now, here's another story, but this one's personal. So I get a call to do a TEDx talk, and I'm super happy in the beginning because this is one thing that I've always wanted to do for a pretty long time, but it was in my 30s, but it just came early, so it's fine. So when it did come, I just found myself responding to it differently because all I could do is to call my friend and to complain, saying, it's such a big responsibility. I mean, I don't think I can do this. And plus, I don't have a topic. And there's going to be big speakers out there. I just don't think I'm good enough for this. Hearing this, he goes like, whoa, you need to calm down, and shares this story with me. So, that's how I am, usually, sometimes. And I believe that's how most of us are, sometimes. We just struggle with ourselves so much. Sometimes we cannot help but be the pessimist kid. We cannot help be the negative person, the complainers, the self-pitied individual who can get so obsessed with finding problems in every solution that we end up being one. It's so interesting how we can be two people at a time, We're the ones who manage to find this little bit of light even in the darkest moments of our lives. But we're also that category of people who manages to find the darkest corner, even in the brightest room. And there's no helping to it. That's what happens when negativity kicks in, right? So what I oftentimes feel about this negativity struggle is that it allows us to work from the station, which looks like a vicious circle, which starts with this idea about how life is not fair, how it's not treating us well, we don't deserve this, we compare, and then we conclude, and how everything we are is not good enough. And I believe this feeling of not being good enough is the saddest point where a human can stand on. So it's quite fascinating how I got to learn this topic of being enough through these little village kids that I met while volunteering in one of those organizations. So, there's something about these kids who wear broken sandals, ragged uniforms, have dirt beneath their fingernails. there's something really mesmerizing about how they want. Well, wow, that's not enough for a little kid like that. No, but for them, it's enough. They have no complaints. These are the happiest kids running down the dusty streets. These are the ones who come up to me and tell me how glad they are to go to a school, to find new friends with whom they can play. Can you imagine that? So, do you think they don't have enough struggles in their lives? I think they do. They struggle as much as we do. The only difference is, despite all of their struggles, they choose to see life as something fun and enjoyable. That's it. Which brings me to this next topic of struggle. So, even though we were fortunate enough not to go through a suffering as severe as the Holocaust prisoners, but it would be wrong for me to tell you that we don't have our sufferings, because we do. Everybody does. Personally, I suffer a lot. I suffer by finding problems into a situation that's not supposed to be a problem in the first place, like coming up with a topic for a talk, or stressing myself so much about thinking how life is going to be, or working side by side with perfectionism that's just going to leave me in the spot where I feel like I'm not good enough. I suffer with my thoughts. It has been nearly 6 years that I've been suffering with obsessive compulsive disorder, which my father does not know, but it's ridiculous, and there are days when I'm sorry. So there are days when it can get really bad, where I feel like I'm this miserable person pleading to myself, saying, stop washing these hands that has been washed like 10 times in a row, but I still have the urge to wash it, and I can't stop it, And when I do suffer, I slip into this loop where I've been bombarded with all these negative thoughts and emotions of shame, blame, negativity, or hopelessness. And what I try to do is I try to escape it. But the more I try to run away from it, the more I suffer. So what I've learned about my suffering is that, or what I've learned about suffering in general is, it is something that's unavoidable. You can never get rid of it. But it is also something you can stay in peace with. And personally, I choose to stay in peace with my sufferings. And how I do it is by seeing it as a choice. Again, choice to see whether it's a place where I can play the victim or take in all the pain, which oftentimes I believe most of us, we tend to do because we feel like that's the only option we have, when it's not. We have the second option, this option to see our sufferings as something where we can gain our greatest strength from. Strength to push forward in moments where you felt like you could not. Strength to see life as something purposeful and beautiful when it does not look like that. Or to be kinder to yourself in such situations. To stand out from this crowd that's constantly telling you to fit in, or the strength to be who you truly are and to accept yourself with a whole heart. And oftentimes when we suffer, we forget that we have this choice in the first place. So in the end, all I'd like to tell you is to please remember, no matter what your sufferings are or no matter what you're going through, know that you all have a choice to go search for a pony that's waiting to be found. Thank you so much.